Right, Daniel Harris is with us this morning. Daniel, good morning to you. How you doing?
Good, thanks. You're right.
Yeah, so a bunch of people have got in touch who are not Manchester United fans who are saying that if your goalkeeper is man of the match in a game like that and has to make 1,000 saves, well then how can it be a tactical masterclass, one? And two, surely Man United have got loads more problems. It's like, well, from where they've come from, it's not a bad result yesterday.
No, because if you're talking about the tactics, the tactical plan worked in the first half and not the second half. United played really well in the first half. I think if Pogba had had a better game than he did, they might have been out of sight at half-time, because the pass that he played to Rashford to put him through for the goal, that wasn't the first time it was on, but Pogba's touch and passing weren't quite on in the first half. And they also had chances in the second half. It's true that subsequently, probably in the last half an hour, United kind of sat deep and defended, and there was no tactics involved there, and they were relying on the fact that they've got a good goalkeeper. But they've got a good goalkeeper. It's not cheating to have a good goalkeeper. And similarly, it's not bad luck that Spurs' finishing was imprecise, whereas Rashford's finish was very precise. So I think United deserved the win. There's a handy metric for determining who deserved to win a football match, and it's called the score. And they're improving, but I thought it was a good barometer of where United are at the moment. Is the attack is good enough to give any team aggravation. The midfield isn't good enough to protect the defence, and the defence isn't good enough to protect the goalkeeper. But it's possible, it's workable for now. There's something to work with, and they'll get better.
Yeah, well, all of a sudden it looks like the trio who started up front for Manchester United could be Manchester United players long into the future, and that could be a trio that takes them into the future. It looks like Lingard has a role, like a clearly defined role, when the team play that way, and that he's more than capable of doing that. And he's also getting the best out of Martial and Rashford, and actually those three will improve for a run of games and the confidence that a manager like Ole Solskjaer gives them.
Yeah, I think that's right. In fairness to Jose Mourinho, not a sentence anyone particularly enjoys saying, but Rashford looked to have stepped it up in the final few weeks that Mourinho was at United, and Lingard was one of the few players that improved under Mourinho, and Martial also probably improved under Mourinho. But the thing about Lingard is that he's not, in some elements, a United standard player, in that United have had better players than him in the past, and the best United teams, he wouldn't have got into them. But in this current team, he makes the rest of the players around him play better, because he has a good football brain, so he's often in the right place, he has good movement, so he occupies defenders, he's fast, he's not scared, and he doesn't stop running. So you see him score goals in Mourinho's last game. He scored a goal against Liverpool because he carried on running, and he was there to anticipate the error. Yesterday, he anticipated Kieran Trippier's pass, and not only did he intercept it, but he laid it down in such a way that it enabled Pogba to move the ball forward. And I was just thinking, if we go back to what we were saying about Ole Solskjaer's tactics, he probably got a bit lucky in that he had a week off where he was able to rehearse a new formation with the players while Tottenham were toiling against Chelsea. But he also took a risk in that if you match up a superior team, and Spurs are a superior team to United, if you match up a better team, their formation, then the chances are you're going to get beaten, because what you're doing is you're mirroring their tactics, except Spurs are more used to playing that diamond formation than United. They play it better than United, and they've got better players than United do at the moment. They've got a way of playing that United don't have. So for Solskjaer to take that risk actually was a significant decision. And in the first 5 minutes, I wondered if that actually would prove to be something sensible. Because usually, if you're the inferior team, what you want to do is you want to try and penetrate your opponent where they're weak and do something that is different to what they're doing. But actually, it worked really well. And in the second half, there's still lessons to be learned, because he wasn't able to affect the flow of the game. Perhaps United had put too much into the first half physically, but he wasn't able to affect the flow of the game particularly, certainly in the last 20 minutes. But that's also the way of things. When two good teams are playing, one's chasing a goal and one's defending a goal, you would expect to see something like what we saw, but you wouldn't. If Paris Saint-Germain get that many sights of United's goals, United won't finish with a clean sheet at the end.
Yeah. Do you expect Manchester United to put it up properly to PSG over the two legs? Like, at this point, it feels like they are a live contender to knock PSG out. It feels to me, anyway, with the sense of confidence that they have, and also the talent. Like, it's not just the attacking players who are playing better. Nemanja Matic is playing better, it seems to me, under Solskjaer, where he's allowed to pass the ball forward, where he's allowed to be himself and still be that very good defender that he was, but like, to get his head up and to look forward and just to have that sense of confidence.
Yeah, I thought he's someone I've obviously to whom I've given quite a lot of stick. I thought he played quite well in the first half. In the second half, I would still be saying, well, how are Spurs getting at United's defence? on this many occasions if you're doing your job properly. The thing about PSG is that it's hard to see how United are going to be able to shut Neymar and Mbappe out of the game with weight of numbers, because the balance of one on each side is problematic. A little bit different against Spurs, who don't play with wingers like that. So you think, well, if you can stop Harry Kane scoring, then Spurs are going to have a problem. So I think that United's best chance probably is, as you say, to fly at PSG from the off and try and score twice in the first half. Because if you look at what they're going to have to do, with the second leg in Paris, you would say United probably going to need 2 goals. If they go to Paris having won 2-1 or 1-0, that is going to be very difficult for them. So I think that it is possible that they could score 3 or 4 times over 2 legs against PSG. But if they defend like they defended yesterday, then they'll concede 5 or 6 times over 2 games. And because you can't expect De Gea to save everything again, you can't expect the finishing, which I don't think was that bad. Like, against lots of goalkeepers, if you put the ball very close to their body, then it's actually pretty hard to get down to. It's just that De Gea is so good with his feet that he's not like other goalkeepers, and his reactions are so quick that he saves things that other people wouldn't. And not only that, he makes them look routine. But PSG's finishing will be better, and you can't expect Mbappe and Neymar and Cavani to miss the chances that Spurs miss. So United will need to think about things, and they will need to find a way of playing that is not their natural way of playing, because they're not good enough to just go toe-to-toe with a team as good as PSG, but they've got a chance. And I think really, if they want to make the most of that chance, they need to sign at least a centre-back or a midfield player. I think that they won't.
Well, that's the thing. You point out the obvious flaws that still remain with this Manchester United team, that this doesn't really seem like the ordinary managerial bounce where all the parts are still fully working together in as close as they can possibly be to perfection. It seems that there is still an element of improvement within this Manchester United squad under Solskjaer's reign, which must be extremely encouraging from a Manchester United point of view.
Yeah, for sure, because what you're looking at now is under Mourinho, you're thinking, who are the good players? Not quite sure who's good, because the ones you think are good aren't really getting a proper chance and they're getting dropped after one bad game. What is the best team, and what do United even need? Now under Solskjaer, after 6 games, that just isn't the case. What's the best team? Well, you know what the best team is. You saw it in his first game, and you saw it yesterday. That's what the best team is. And so now it's a matter of saying, well, actually, where are the holes? And you just have to sign the right players to fit those holes. That's difficult to do. But you could say, well, they need probably 2 midfield players and 1 or 2 centre-backs, depending on how good you think Victor Lindelof's going to be. But that's what you need. You don't need a striker. You don't need wingers, because you know now that Rashford, Martial, Lingard are a useful front 3, and you've got Lukaku and Sanchez in reserve, and you've got some players coming through in the under-23s who are good players and who are going to be really good players. It's a matter of filling the gaps in the squad. And that's what Liverpool did. They got to a point where they thought, actually, Jurgen Klopp knows what his best team is. He's found a way of playing. He's getting the most out of the best players. Now what he needs some guile in midfield. So he signs Shaqiri, he needs a goalkeeper, and he signs a centre-back. And he signed those players. And that's what United need to do in January and in the summer. And I guess we're kind of moving on to that question of who's going to be the person that gets to pick those players. And I said when we spoke after Solskjaer got appointed that it wouldn't be enough to smash the teams that United should be smashing. You need to start getting some results in big games. And we saw the first one of those yesterday. And we saw it done via thought and tactics and preparation, which tells you that it's not just about he's being nice to everyone, he's not Mourinho, he's telling them to express themselves, he's doing something more than that. And if he carries on like that, then he will probably make an unanswerable case to be given the job.
Yeah. It was interesting that Southgate got a mention at the weekend as a potential for this. Like, part of me feels like that's exactly what should happen, that everybody who is available, who has shown any aptitude for managing at a level similar to this, you can make the case that maybe international football isn't quite the same over a sustained period of time as the Manchester United job. But like, if you're doing due diligence, you think of Gareth Southgate as a potential Manchester United manager, and if that's all this is, then fine. But if they actually give it to Southgate, then it becomes a slightly different issue.
Yeah, I mean, you'd have a look at all the available candidates, and that is about time, because Moyes was presented by Fergie as a fait accompli, and it was a ludicrous appointment. Van Gaal, I felt at the time, was a less ridiculous appointment, because he had a brilliant World Cup where it's just so rare that you watch a World Cup and the role of a manager in the exceptional progress of a team beyond what you would expect from them can be literally attributed to the decisions made by the coach that you've seen. But it was the wrong appointment. And Mourinho was also sort of presented as a fait accompli when there were other options available at the time. So yeah, it does make sense to speak to to look at Pochettino, to look at Allegri, to look at all these people. Southgate, I don't think is the right man for the job because I don't think that he's assembled a body of work yet. Where if you look at England in the World Cup, they didn't really beat anyone good. And they produced 2 or 3 really good first half performances, then faded in the second half, and Southgate was unable to do anything about that. So, for example, in the semi-final when they played Croatia, England played really well in the first half, should have been out of sight. And Southgate seemed to assume that Croatia would just play that badly again in the second half. He didn't really make any changes, and his game management in the course of the tournament seemed that he was unable to affect the flow of the game with sensible substitutions. And even in the Nations Cup, the win over Croatia was uplifting, but it sort of came in the chaos rather than anything sensible that Southgate did. And the thing about Solskjaer is if he gets the job, it will be because he's made a case by getting results for United. And I don't think that there's anything Southgate has done or can do between now and then that would rival the case that Solskjaer has the potential to make. If he ends up getting the job, it will be because he's won loads of games with United and done it in the right way and plotted in such a way that it shows that there's a future for his management. And the other thing about Southgate and Solskjaer is if you say that they're similar in that neither of them has done anything remarkable in the top level, so Southgate doesn't have that much authority with non-English United players, whereas Solskjaer is slightly different because he's a club hero, which is going to make some of the players feel like they should listen to him because he's accorded respect by other people that they respect and accorded respect around the club that gives him slightly more authority to go with the power that you get as a manager of United.
Yeah, Ferguson also being there, like I wouldn't have been terribly surprised to have found out afterwards that Ferguson wandered down to the changing rooms to say hello to everybody, you know, just as a bless you, like an old pope. Just to briefly talk about Liverpool before we finish up here, they're grinding out the wins in a way that they have to do if they're actually going to wrap up a league title this year. And just there was a lot made of how important this game was going to be after the 2 successive defeats. Granted, one was in the cup, but these matches in the past have tripped up potential title winners, and the manner in which they managed to scrape a 1-0 win is exactly what you want from a team chasing a title.
Yeah, I agree. Like I've obviously, as you know, gobshotted on here all season that I don't think Liverpool will win the league, and I don't think they'll get particularly near winning the league. That is beginning to look like gobshitting, it's got to be said. I do think that City will win the league in the end because there's too many games to go, and you always ask yourself the question: which team is better? And I think I don't see any way that City aren't better. And Liverpool had the good fortune to have a brilliant purple patch while City were without David Silva, Fernandinho, Sergio Aguero and Kevin De Bruyne. And City is still in it. So I do think that it was a huge win for Liverpool because if they don't win that and then City do win, the lead's almost gone and the momentum begins to reverse when you've gone 3 games without a win. But they managed to find a way. And at the moment, the reason why they're in front and the reason why I'm reevaluating and thinking perhaps this will be close is that Liverpool are finding a way to win all the games that you would expect them to win. So then if it comes down to, if the league champions come down to just who wins against the other decent teams in what's left of the season, then those are going to be very fine margins. So I do think City will win the league, but I do think that was also a huge win for Liverpool. And again, if they can keep their key players fit, if they can keep Salah and Van Dijk fit, then they've got a chance. But I do think that City are, you're beginning to hear the Jaws music when City come out to play now, and that's not the case with Liverpool. They haven't had a bad patch yet. So I still expect City to win the league, but Liverpool have got a chance.
There's one other thing I wanted to ask you about, Daniel. There's a fella who's been given the Player of the Weekend award here in The Guardian called Declan Rice. I'm not sure if you heard of him. He seems pretty good. How many England caps is he going to get?
I don't know. It depends. Who wouldn't be seduced by being built around by Mick McCarthy? I think that it's really hard to knock out opinions about who you think players are going to play for and who you think players should play for, because the identity of a particular individual is, quite frankly, none of anyone else's business. And so, I saw it particularly when Wilfried Zaha decided to play for Cote d'Ivoire, not for England. And Gareth Southgate, who generally seems like quite a nice guy, basically suggested that he wasn't as committed as other players and started using tropes that it's not really acceptable to refer to. He compared him unfavourably to Jermaine Defoe, who would do anything for England. And again, like his identity is none of anyone's business, and you should never be surprised when when a player decides to play for a team that you think is less good than the one that they could play for, because these things are complicated. Danny Welbeck's another one. I was at Danny Welbeck's England debut. It was against Ghana because my wife's Ghanaian and I was in the Ghana end. And when he decided he was playing for Ghana, I thought, he's playing for England, not Ghana. I had a brief moment where I thought, that's a shame. I'd have preferred you to play for Ghana. And then I advised myself and I realised that how he identifies has absolutely nothing to do with me. So back to Declan Rice. I'm not going to give an opinion about who I think he should play for because it's up to Declan Rice who Declan Rice plays for. But yeah, he looks a really talented player, and he's able to do a lot of things, which is also really interesting because I think what we're getting in young players is we're getting really skillful players who are really good on the ball and really good touch wherever they play. And Declan Rice is a defensive player, but also looks like he's able to defend. And we saw from his finish that he's also got excellent technique. On Goals on Sunday yesterday, Miguel Antonio was saying they give him loads of stick in training because he should score loads more goals than he does because he's so good on the ball. And he also said that he thinks his best position is in front of the back four. So I think that he's someone who looks to have all the potential to do everything and looks to have the right character to get on with doing everything. But yeah, I don't know who he'll play for.
So he's been linked with City obviously this week, but the way you're talking about him there and how Manchester United have clearly identified a hole either as a centre-back or as a defensive central midfielder, he could equally work for Manchester United, right?
Yeah, I think we'll see a few players bought in that position. Like because City, as we've seen this season, they tried to sign Jorginho. Not sure. I think they might have been well out of that one as it happens. But they tried to sign Jorginho and they struggled when they didn't have Fernandinho. Everyone wants Frankie De Jong. Spurs apparently are trying to buy him. So United need a player for that position as well. So yeah, it's quite hard to see Declan Rice being at West Ham in the summer, and he will probably get a move to an English club in the summer. I'm guessing, and might be Manchester United, might be Manchester City. But if Pep Guardiola wants you, then if Ole Solskjaer wants you, then yeah, there's a good chance that you're a serious player, and it's definitely if Mick McCarthy wants you. Yeah,
I mean he's been liking comments on Instagram, and it's been making the news here that somebody Instagrammed future Irish captain, and he liked it, so therefore he's back, baby.
Present Irish captain is what I say. Just give him the captaincy now.
Straight away.
Forget the green jersey.
Yeah.
Should be the Prime Minister.
Yeah, well, there might be an opening. Daniel, great stuff. Thanks a million.
See you again, guys.
Daniel Harris there giving us some thoughts on what's going on in the world of English football. We didn't get to Rio Ferdinand and Mike Ashley.
No, we didn't. And
passionate defence of Mike Ashley. Newcastle fans should be grateful. They should prostrate themselves down in front of him, at his knee, kiss his feet for saving that club.
Most importantly, though, Richard Keys backing him up, saying, "Well said, Rio Ferdinand. If Rafa loves Newcastle, as he says, spend some of his own money. He's got enough. Management is about teamwork. Why should it always be Ashley? Buy it. It's still for sale. They're in the bottom three, and Rafa is responsible. He picks the team." Which I'm sure he is just looking for a reaction there. No man can possibly miss the point that spectacularly.
3,000 likes on that.
Like, it's all ironic likes. Like, nobody is actually thinking
Sunderland fans.
That. Yeah, exactly. Nobody is really in agreement with that. It's like I saw people tweeting him saying there's problems with the NHS. Should nurses buy hospital beds?
Yes, of course they should.
Yeah, of course they should. According to
they're rich.
This little tab of the weekend at a glance in The Guardian is actually pretty good reading from an Irish perspective. Of course, player of the weekend was Declan Rice. Shane Long makes team of the weekend.
Oh yeah,
he was excellent on Saturday.
Yeah,
he was really good. He won the penalty that got their first goal, obviously, and then scored a second, which
you're not giving to him. You are gooseberrying.
The only reason I'm giving this goal to Shane Long is because it set up one of the more remarkable modern footballing statistics, that his last 4 Premier League goals have come under 4 different managers for Southampton, which is an astonishing statistic. But if you watch that goal again, now it's not a known goal, like if you get into the nitty-gritty of the law, was his shot on target? I dare say it wasn't. I say Kasper Schmeichel gave him a massive dig out in terms of putting that one into the back of the net. But he deserved the goal. He was brilliant, and he does make the Guardian team of the weekend. The one Irishman who did get screwed over, I feel, in the goal-scoring stakes was actually Jeff Hendrick for one of Burnley's own goals. Now, the Burnley game was just classic Burnley. They Burnley the life out of Fulham. They didn't have a single shot on target and still managed to beat them 2-1, despite the fact that Andre Schürrle scored one of the goals, probably one of the goals of the month. I don't want to say goals of the season. And I was completely deflated by the fact that Burnley beat them without getting a shot on target. But I feel that Jeff Hendrick's shot had a very good chance of being on target. It was one of those that you're cutting in, you're on, to the right of the goals with the right boot. Just with the outside of the boot, it might have just curled in and gone in off the woodwork. I suspect that's what would have happened with Hendrick's effort. But the statistics people said it wasn't, and it was given as an own goal. To a Fulham own goal at that point. So that's a bit of a shame from that perspective. But there are green shoots from an Irish perspective. Kieran Clark as well scoring against Chelsea on Saturday, which has to be one of the more dour post-match press exchanges I've ever seen between Maurizio Sarri and Rafa Benitez. Benitez, of course, at this point, everything is doom and gloom, and everything he says just feels like a really sad movie. And Sarri and all his Chelsea players just can't find a smile no matter where they look. Even when they've won, it kind of sounds like that they've just suffered a defeat. So the Kieran Clark goal came in that particular exchange. So I don't want to use the phrase "good week for the Irish," but
why not? Go on.
But
do it.
In the context of where we've been at for the last year,
is it like one of the greatest weeks?
I've got to press the button right now and say it was a good weekend for the Irish in the Premier League.